fitness in general is a little intimidating. So
Yeah,
I
and
don't think,
that kind of irritates me too. That like a lot of women get intimidated by it, and I understand it, but it's like, but just make the step. Like, yeah, guys are going to talk to you, they're going to hit on you, just blow them off.
yeah, yeah. But it's intimidating on social media too, because I don't think a lot of people want to put it out there that they want help or that they feel like they're out of shape or they want to get in shape because it's some reason there's like a in the general public, even though it's accepted, it still feels like it's unaccepted or it's got a stigma around it. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
so to put your business out there, like, hey, yeah, I want to lose weight, it doesn't, or like I'm. And the other thing too, with like especially with Instagram more, is everybody thinks they know it all. And so if you're a little guy like you or me, meaning like we're not a big name in the business, we don't have any significant accolades, we're not a pro, we're not a top level national guy yet. We're almost like discredited, and people don't want to join into the conversation, so to speak, because we're not backed by all the information. They think they know everything as well too. It's
And that's what I. But that's like me. You know me. I very rarely ever make posts on Instagram just because it's
yeah,
just not my.
yeah,
You know, my stuff's word of mouth. You know, I'll get the occasional person from Instagram that contacts me wanting training, but 9 times out of 10, it's in person. You know, referred from another client, stuff like that.
yeah.
But that's
You
just because I to stay away from social media a lot.
don't put anything on Instagram.
No, I call it my 6 year or 6 month check in that I'm still alive. You're like, oh, he's still alive. Okay.
But it's funny, man. So we're filming, by the way. I just hit the record button a little while ago because I thought what we're talking about was pretty good, anyways. But it's funny because obviously you and I didn't talk for a little bit of time, and then
Yeah.
they had the show in Northern Virginia where our guys competed, and I saw you finally made a post. I didn't know we were friends. I didn't know we were friends on Facebook anymore. And I saw the dude that won the class, and I was like, what the heck's that? I was like, oh shit. I was like, Sean. I was like, that's his client. I was like, that
Yep.
motherfucker. I was like, he got me.
Funny is it's lately it's been that way. It's like every time I have somebody competing, whoever comes in second, I know that coach. You're well,
Yeah,
like, wait a minute, you coach? That's I'm like, yeah, that was me.
yeah. That was dude. That show, man. That show was actually for a small show. It was packed with some fucking talent, mostly in the
Yeah.
classic physique classes, dude. There was one dude. I think he won. So it was two shows in one, right? It was the Armed
Yeah.
Forces and then Virginia Classic, I think it was. But
Yeah.
the dude that won the classic in the Armed Forces was like 6'3", 285. He was massive.
I saw the photos. He was a bodybuilder. I was
Yeah.
like, it's he irritates me a little bit. It's like, yeah, you look good, you look great, but you're not fitting into the classic aspect. You're a bodybuilder. And
No,
it's the same when classic guys do bodybuilding. It's like, look, you're not one of the guys, you're not one of the freaks.
yeah.
Stay in your own lane. That always bugs me.
He could have easily won the overall for bodybuilding, but
Yeah.
he just jumped in classic and he's got muscle and he's got conditioning, so he just won it.
Yeah. And see, that normally is a real packed show. They've had 400 or 500 competitors before normally.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The lady that puts it on, oh, I can't remember her name. I think it's Stacy, something like that. She's a pro. Super sweet lady. And man,
Okay.
they real good.
Okay.
Normally COVID stipulations were a little different, but
Yeah. No, dude, it ran very smoothly. What I liked about it is so you've been to shows, man. They're way too long.
oh
First
yeah.
of all, you got, and no offense to the classes, but just the men's physique and now classic physique, and then the women's bikini classes. Just it makes the shows go so long. But what I liked, what they did with that show is they broke it up. They did the men's divisions all like 9 to whatever time it went to. I think we're at like 12 o'clock, and then they had like
Yep.
an intermission, and they did all the female classes. So for competitors, dude, you know what it's like being backstage. If you're dehydrated, right?
Oh,
You cut water. If you took any kind of diuretic, that's a long day to sit there from freaking 9 a.m. to 6, 7 p.m. It's tough to do
yeah.
that.
And I don't know how long it took for you to get the information, but Chris didn't get the information to me until the night before the show about like what they were doing, when was finals, all that.
Yeah.
So like I'm still trying to formulate everything together. So that's kind of the part I don't like is they don't help the athletes to get them in the best shape, and that
Yeah.
always hit me.
Yeah.
I had a client in California right before COVID hit. California started doing it where men competed on Fridays, women competed on Saturdays.
That's awesome.
I think that's great to do it that
Yeah.
way because nothing against anyone, but it's like some of these classes are just monstrous and it takes all day long. And the judges get tired too, you know
So
what
I
I
was
mean?
gonna say, so put that in perspective, man. I mean, I can't stay concentrated at work for 8 hours straight. So how are these judges, accurately judging the classes? And it's you've seen it in other shows, man. A lot of the times they get their top five, and then the next group comes out second call, and the cards kind of just fall where they lay, and they
Yeah.
don't really accurately judge, 6 through 10 and below. It's just kind of like if you come out in that order, you're going to stay in that order unless you're a real standout.
Yeah, and it sucks, but you have to look at what the judges are going through. They're getting tired of seeing all this too. They're not getting breaks.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's tiring.
So pretty cool. This is our first podcast, episode 1 of Secrets Revealed Bodybuilding Podcast. So I know you and I talked about it. We kind of came up with the idea that Secrets Revealed for the name was a pretty ironic name because there really are no secrets in the sport. It's the old adage, eat, sleep, and train stands true, and that's it. It's you got to eat. You got to eat till you're uncomfortable. You got to get uncomfortable. Sorry, you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You got to train hard, intense, and you got to recover. And that's the biggest thing. And you want to expand on that a little bit?
I mean, that's basically, you're 100% right. It's people always want to try and find that shortcut to become the next Ronnie Coleman by next year. Or the Instagram people, they use them as the idols to go after. And we'll have girls, both of us have people that will come up to us at a completely out of shape, 3 months in the gym, and they think within 1 year they can be pro and be Miss Olympia. It just doesn't happen that way. And they think that there's some secret sauce or some special diet or workout. There's not. It's the most repetitive thing you will ever do. Life kind of sucks at times and you're just tired, sore, and you're stuffed, and you just got to keep eating that chicken breast.
Yeah. So you brought up a really good point there. You said a lot of, I'll just repeat it basically. I get a lot of people that contact me, and I'm sure you get the same thing, that haven't worked out, or either they just started working out, they haven't even started working out, but they want to compete and they want to win this year.
Yep.
What do you when someone comes to you with that question? Hey, I just started working out. I want to compete next year and I want to win. How do you approach that situation?
It's a tough situation, because I deal with a lot of females, and females are extremely competitive. A lot of people don't know that. And they'll see these Instagram girls that they look great, but they don't put in the fact that they've been doing this for 4 or 5 years. Trust me, they're not natural. The genetic difference. So
Bikini girls aren't natural anymore.
They're not. They're more drugged up than the guys are.
Yeah.
And they just have a hard concept of understanding that just doing a couple squats isn't going to grow you this nice big booty. You eating a couple cups of yogurt and a couple chicken breasts a couple times a week is not going to get you stage ready. It's a long phase to put on that muscle, get that shape ready, get that skin tight. And they just don't understand that. And they get defeated after a while. After around 6 months, it's just like, well, I don't understand. Why am I not in shape? It's like, you've never done this. It takes a while.
So a couple of big takeaways from what you just said is, the first thing is, the first key takeaway is consistency and the length of time.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't happen overnight, and it takes a long time. Everyone always says, oh yeah, I just don't have the genetics for it. I don't have, I've been working out and I just don't have the genetics. I can't grow like you. I'm like, well, how many years have you been training? Years. I've only been, the last 2 months. It takes years of eating the same foods. Listen, we got like 8 foods we can choose from. And it's like rice, fucking green beans, right? Like there's not that much variety. You have to be okay with having the same stuff every day, the same times. This whole sport is very, very monotonous. It's like Groundhog Day pretty much.
Oh yeah, very much.
The better you are at that, the better the bodybuilder or fitness competitor you are. The second piece he said, which a lot of people don't realize, is the skin needs to get tight. So a lot of these girls come and they're a little overweight, or they're just a little overweight, out of shape, and they want to compete. And it's like, we can drop 50 pounds, but it's going to take a while for that skin to tighten up to be ready for the stage. There's a big difference. I had a client last year, and she was with me. I think I was with her for like 11 months, and we dropped maybe 30 pounds off her, and it was a bigger recomposition than just 30 pounds loss. It was 30 pounds loss and muscle gain at the same time too. But she had a lot of stomach fat, just stomach fat, so we dropped a lot of it. But she's like, why do I look like this? I want to be tight and I want to do the stuff on stage. And I was like, it's going to take a long time for that skin to get tight again. And
Very much.
if you're not young, that skin's not going to tighten up to what you want it to be most of the times too.
Between that and you have to look at how fast you're losing that weight.
Yeah.
You know, I've had people that are like, I just want to, do a show and it's in 4 or 5 months. And I'm like, look, you got to lose 40, 50 pounds.
Yeah.
They're like, well, okay. I'm like, we can do it. You're going to be very unhealthy. It's going to be a sloppy look. Your skin's going to be loose. Or how about you just wait and do a full year, get everything organized, have it slow, and you look great. Because that's the thing a lot of people don't look at is a lot of women are guilty of this, is they're obsessed with the weight.
Yeah.
And they don't look at it as when you're on stage, it's just you in this little scantily bikini. Your weight's not on that scale or on that stage. I'm sorry. And they don't realize that. So your weight doesn't matter. So it's how about we just present you the best way possible, the most healthiest way. That's what wins. Yeah. And it's a lot of times it's just because they want to rush the process. And a lot of times they just want to get those photos on Instagram. That's really what a lot of it comes down to. It really does. Unfortunately,
that's probably I've had a real heartache with it over the last year or so. It's everybody wants to compete, and like you ask them why, and no one really has a good why they want to compete. And I think the majority of them is they want to be able to have something to post on Instagram and social media, and they want to get that attention, and they want to get credit for the work that they didn't do. Like this, like we just talked about, it's a lifestyle. I don't think anyone should be stepping on stage if you haven't trained for at least 2 years. It's not something that you can't just decide to do a show. It's the whole lifestyle that leads you to be able to do that show. And it's a length, it's at least 2 years into it before you have enough muscle to look the part.
Oh, very much. I mean, there's so much advanced training techniques that need to be learned. The hardest part is going to be the food. Cause like we talked before, you have a very select amount of foods you can choose from.
Yeah.
And it takes a hard mentality to stick to those foods. Like I think I told you before, I trained 2 Navy SEALs before. They couldn't stick to the diet. Yeah. And they like, no, and I think it boils down to like their whole lives. They were just told what to do and they did it. Now they have to do it. But it's a hard thing to do. You're talking 12 to 16 weeks, day in and day out. You're tired, you're sore, your body just aches left and right. And you just get a chicken breast, rice, and broccoli. So yeah, this is great to look forward to. And your spouse is over there chowing down on pizza or chicken lo mein or something.
Yeah, that's another big thing that a lot of people don't realize is, spousal support, or your partner support. I'm pretty fortunate. You're pretty fortunate that our girls are they're into the lifestyle. I don't think Katie doesn't compete. Summer competes, but she still lives the lifestyle and she knows what you need to do. So she lets you do that. But a lot of couples, they get in some big arguments and it's tough because the husband wants to keep eating the beer and the pizza and she's trying to get ready for a show. And I've had a couple clients like that. And it's not fun for them.
Oh no. I mean, we've probably seen relationships break up over it too. Just from, I hate to say it, it's a very selfish sport.
Very selfish sport.
It's all about me at this point. And I don't care how strict you are in yourself or even how often you cheat. It's going to backfire at some point. And that spouse has to be on board and be willing to help you. Yeah. I had a female that was a power lifter and years ago, and it was a day or two before her meet. It was the week before her meet. She was 1 pound from weight. And she went to a friend's house with their spouse and just lost it, went off on food, and ended up putting on 7 or 8 pounds. And I told her, I'm not comfortable bringing you in for this show now, at this weight for your competition. And yeah. She did. I was like, look, I'll keep guiding you, but I'm not going to tell you what to do because it's going to be unsafe. And she did it herself. She just starved herself for 3 or 4 days, the sauna, didn't drink for like a day and a half, made weight. But then
performance probably, right?
Oh, it was the worst lifts she ever had. Like her gym lifts were, I've seen bodybuilders do the same thing. They'll toss on the sauna suit just to make weight and everything, which 1 or 2 pounds is fine. But
yeah,
when you pounds in one day, it's going to backfire.
Yeah, you're gonna be too soft. Water. What a lot of people don't understand is water. Everyone thinks you have to drop water for a show, which a lot of times you do. But what they don't understand, if you overdo the diuretics or you overdo the sauna or dropping water, not drinking, whatever tactic you want to take, water is what volumizes the muscle. Water is the carbs soak up the water in the muscle. That's how you get that skin tight look, that vacuum sealed look on the muscle. And so if you're too depleted, your muscle's going to shrink and you're not going to have that vacuum sealed look. You're going to be soft and you're going to look small.
No, very true. And it's people don't understand the difference between what fat is and what water is also.
Well, what did you tell me a couple years ago? If it jiggles,
Yeah, if it jiggles, you know it's fat. And water sheen look to it. You can tell.
yeah,
Fat doesn't. And we've all seen competitors like, oh, I was just holding water. It's like, no, you got like 10, 15 pounds of fat still on you. It's not water.
yeah,
When you're very, very lean, you're not going to hold much water.
yeah,
You'll have someone in a little bit of sheen on you, and you don't even need diuretics for that. That's one of the other secrets is people think diuretics are used on every competitor.
no,
Man, I can probably think back to my last 10 competitors, only maybe one or two use diuretics.
really,
Yeah, because it's a lot of it's just they have to be in shape. You got to be willing to do the water manipulation, and you got to stay on track, which isn't all just on the coach; it's on the competitor also.
yeah,
I drinking from one measuring cup, peeing in another measuring cup, and I'm writing down numbers, how much you intook, you took out. You got to keep on track with those things, and you have to get that feedback in order to get that water off. Because,
yeah,
and we all both know, the more they stress, you can't help them.
yeah. No, stress is probably the number one killer for people.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I think I watched a guy backstage just fading away just because he was stressing. And I mean,
yeah,
this guy would have won the show, and he didn't even win his class because he just started stressing so bad, and he just washed out.
it sucks. It's terrible. I don't know what I don't get that mentality, man. Because for me, once I'm backstage, dude, it's so easy. This is bodybuilding is the one sport where the work's done at the competition, right? When
Oh
it's
yeah,
competition, the work's done. You can't. There's nothing you can do backstage or on stage where you're going to be able to edge out your competitor. You can't run a little faster or there's nothing you can do. It's you practice your posing or you did your diet, you did your workouts, you practice your posing. That's all you can do. The work is done. Go
yep,
on stage, pose, and be relaxed when you pose. You don't need to
oh
be
yeah.
flexing crazy hard, or else the same thing's gonna happen again. You're gonna flatten out.
Oh yeah, anytime I've been backstage, I'm joking around with people. I remember one time I was playing around and I'm about to step on stage, and the lady that was letting us out to the stage was like, "Sir, you got to take your nipple ring out." I was like, "Oh," like I completely forgot. Like I'm really paying attention to nothing. I mean, well, I've seen one guy go out on stage with flip flops.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, he was on stage with flip flops. He won the class too. I remember that. In like middle of them doing quarter turns, like when he turned to the back, he kicks them off real quick.
Jesus. I was
But
laughing because I just had a client actually the same day as that Virginia show. I had another client competing in Canada, and he competed with his nipple ring in. he sent me pictures. I was like, and I didn't say it to him, but I was like, "You had your nipple ring," and he won his class. He won his class, but
but I just wasn't paying attention. I was having fun backstage, and
yeah,
I'm in line, and I knew about it, but it just escaped my mind that I had to take it out and
yep,
just going on there because, like you said, the hard work's over.
yeah,
You gotta enjoy it. Honestly, that's to me peak week. I've always hated that term peak week.
mhm.
You should be peak before peak week. That final week should be fun. We're fine tuning things. Like
Well, let's talk
a
about
girl I
peak week. That's a pretty big buzzword on social media these days. What is peak week, and what does your typical peak week look like usually?
I don't even have a standard, honestly.
Mhm.
To me, I like getting everyone in shape before. Like to me, if you want to define a peak week, that's week 3. Then week 2, we're just coasting in. The final week is just the fine tuning. It's seeing how sensitive you are to carbs. If we're using diuretics, we'll test run some things. I mean, like I told you, the girl that I just turned pro, the final week, I've had her eating like chicken and broccoli from Chinese restaurants. I had her taking a shot at tequila one night,
Mhm.
burger, just trying to fill her body out, do certain things to see. Because you should, by that point, you're in shape. If you have fat on your stomach with 1 week to go,
Yep.
tough luck.
So let's say you've got a male bodybuilder, and he's got to make weight class, and he's pretty close to weight. Like you don't have to drop. Let's say he's a light heavyweight, and 1 week out he's 204. What would your approach be to get him ready for the show? How do you make sure he makes weight and is filled out in time?
Carb cut, and also volume of food cut. A lot of people are afraid to cut protein amounts.
Mhm.
At that point, your protein's not. You're not building muscle. Now your protein's just surviving your muscle. That's all it's doing.
Yeah,
You got to cut the weight of the food down. So
yeah,
go for calories like we've talked before, like macadamia nut oil versus peanut butter. You're talking such a dense nutrient and way less the amount of food. Or
oh, okay,
red meat is very heavy
yeah,
compared to chicken breast and a little bit of oil or peanut butter. it's just the difference in the weight that you're consuming.
Yeah.
A lot of it would also be for the fact of how much water they're intaking, how much they're holding of water. You just got to factor a lot of those little things in when going into that final week.
Yeah.
But I've always relied heavily on the volume of food. When we get about 3-4 weeks out, I'll start cutting the total weight of your food down. The calories will be the same.
Yeah.
Maybe a touch lower, but the total weight's a lot lower.
So like maybe like a fish instead of chicken.
Correct. Yep. Because you eat 8 ounces of fish versus 8 ounces of chicken. Yeah, 8 ounces at 8 ounces, but that chicken's a lot denser.
Yeah. It
But like
sucks when you get switched to fish too, man, because it digests so fast.
oh yeah, I love when I switch.
You eat fish and you're already hungry while you're eating that meal. You're hungry for the next meal already.
Yeah. But like in oils are so much less weight than peanut butter.
Yep.
And that's a big thing that I think people are afraid to use oils. Like I know you and me are big on oils, but
Yeah.
So many people like, oh, I don't eat oil. I do peanut butter. I'm like, okay. I mean, you can get in way more food if you do oils, but
So that's a big, and I want to stay in competition prep for minutes too, but just a quick tip for everybody who's in the off season and is struggling to get the food down: take the almonds out, take the peanut butter out, and swap with oil. You can put oil in your shake. You don't even know it's there. It goes down fast. You can put it on your chicken, on your beef, and it just makes it. Chicken's dry, man. If you don't, I mean, we're lazy. We cook so much chicken at the house. We literally just put plain chicken in a crock pot, no seasonings, and that's what you put in the Tupperware afterwards. But you put your oil on there, it makes it so much more palatable. And
oh yeah,
it even feels like less food. You know what I mean? It sits easier in the stomach. Yeah, all around easier food.
oh yeah.
So for peak week for me, I typically I don't like having my guys super full anyways, leading into shows. I just don't. The new thing nowadays is everyone. I just feel like everyone wants to be full all year round and all prep. They want to be full. It's always like, oh, trying to make another push to drop some weight, but while keeping the fullness. And I'm like, you don't need to be full. You don't need to be ready until the day of the show. Be flat. You know, but so you need to be flat, but you also need to ride that. There's also a very careful line that you can't cross with being too flat either. Because once you get too flat, it's gonna be too hard to get back. But I like to keep my guys, fairly flat. And then the last week, if we're still really, hurting to make that weight, I go to like a protein veggie diet. Cut the carbs out, cut the fats out, honestly, and just do protein veggie until we get really close to that weight, and then kind of keep them balanced there. And then hopefully, if we need to use a diuretic, we use a diuretic. For Etienne, for that Virginia show, Etienne, he was middleweight, so 176 cutoff. He woke up like the day of the show at 176, the day before, because they weighed in on a Friday. So him and my other buddy drove down from Connecticut to Virginia on Friday, and I was like, dude, you can't eat. I was like, eat meal one, and I had him on some natural diuretics. I had him on 600 milligrams of Uva Ursi with every meal. So eat meal one. I said, give me your weight at 2 o'clock. He was like 176.4. I was like, hold out, man. I was like, it sucked, because then it was just a nightmare for him getting ready for that show, man. Because then I don't know what was going on with her. They had to check in. They had to get their tans. And some reason long story short, he didn't get checked in and weighed until like 7 p.m. So I think I gave him some almonds in between like 2 o'clock and then he made weight, but it was like 7 p.m. And I had to like get this kid like 3 meals all before like 11 o'clock.
Man, I had a guy one time. This guy, he's my guy in California. He was making middleweights, and he was like 2 pounds overweight.
Yeah. And
he's like, all right, like an hour and a half for check-ins. And so he's like, all right, I'll be back. And they're like, no, we're done. You're the last guy. He's like, are you serious? So they put him in light heavy at 178. He was pissed. So I was like, we'll have some fun with this. I had him eat 8 hamburgers from that point until about 4 a.m. He showed up at the stage. I mean, big, full, hard, everything you can think of. And he's like, man, he goes, I'm tired of hamburgers. Yeah. And he didn't think it was going to work. I was like, I never like the word trust me when you tell a competitor that. Yeah. And that's one of the times I've ever said, you just got to trust me on this. Like, I'm going to get you big and full. Because there was guy at 178 is going to compete against people that are 198.
Yeah.
But I, like with you though, I've always preferred to have you flat as possible because
Yeah.
you'll burn much faster and fluid and more fluid than being somewhat full.
Yeah.
But like that goes to the Instagram thing when they like to post their pictures. What's the thing they always say? Oh, I'm flat here, but this is what I look like. You're not flat.
They always I can't think of the word right now, but they always put a little note in there so just in case someone thinks they look like shit, they got an excuse off the bat.
Yeah. Oh, I haven't had carbs in 3 hours, so I'm flat.
Yeah.
Man, I can tell you so many times where I've had like an excess amount of carbs and I'm still feeling it for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
But that's something people don't realize is it's not just your body, but there's so many myths and fake stuff out there about nutrients on how long it takes a fat to digest, a carb, protein. Not only is it just person to person dependent, like I have a very fast metabolism, but some stuff like people don't realize there's some fats that can take up to 4 to 5 days to digest.
Yep.
But when you get a guy that's a finely tuned athlete with a fast metabolism, those fats don't stand a chance. They're getting digested quick.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that people are supposed to follow when it comes to this bodybuilding stuff or weight loss, because that's just what people tell you to do, but nobody ever questions it.
Mm-hmm.
And it all goes back to the old ad of what we've been talking about is there is no secrets. It's just literally, you got to do what you got to do. The people back from the 60s and 70s, they do the same thing nowadays in 2020. It's just more of it.
More of it and more fats, I think, too. I don't really use a lot of fats back in the 60s and 70s. It's all carbs and protein, right?
Yeah.
It's so, yeah, man, there's so much information available nowadays, too. It's insane. I remember when I started training, I started training, I'm 30 now, I started when I was 16. So that was, 2006? There was no information, really. There was no social media. I remember, like, the only information I could find is, like, I would type in Google, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger arm workout. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That was the information out there at the time. That, and then I didn't know about it, but there was forums, apparently. I wasn't on any of those forums. But
the thing with, I can tell you a funny one. A friend of mine dragged me onto one just as a resource to get clients, stuff like that. And he had a friend on there, and I think the guy's name was Squat God. And the way he always talked on this forum was like he was this big monster guy. He knew what he was talking about, everything. Yeah. Well, we actually had a mutual friend that was a client of mine in North Carolina that was competing. So I went down there to support my client, and he showed up at the show. And we're talking, this guy was 350 pounds of just blubber. And I'm like, you're on this forum talking about running trend by itself, running upward 900 milligrams of trend, no test, eating all this food. I'm like, dude, you don't follow any of that. I can tell.
Yeah.
But so I've always forums because of that.
Sounds like all the keyboard warriors today. They're talking trash to all the pros in the shows. That's
and they're living.
Everyone talks so much trash on like all these pros that place, do you watch Fuad's podcast at all?
I catch it every once in a while. Yeah,
he's got a really good podcast, and he was talking about it too. But like, people trash these pros, man, who get like top 5 at shows. Like, oh yeah, but he looks like shit, or he's only a 10th place Olympian guy. It's like, dude, 10th place in the world.
monsters men. I mean, I don't know how many pros that you've met in person, but like when you see these guys, like I met Dexter Jackson, which everyone knows him as like the giant killer. He's a little guy. This guy was a monster when I met him. I'm like, man,
nasty, dude. We met at Keem, I think like 2 times. We're in we did the Arnold in 2017. We drove down, which I'll never go again, by the way, unless I'm competing in the show. Hopefully someday.
you beat the show, my first Arnold, because I've never wanted to go to one.
Dude, first of all, it's so crowded, man. And the expo is it's all just the like the Bradley Martins, and it's pretty much it's just a place to go and show off. If you work out, you walk around in a tank top, and that's all it is. It's just a bunch of dudes sizing each other up, walking around. But so we saw Akeem there, and Summer loves Akeem. She's like, I want to get a picture with him. And I was like, can you like pick up and put on your shoulder? This dude, his arm was like the size of her whole like torso. It made me feel inferior as a man. This dude just like picks her up and throws her up on his shoulder like it was like she was a paperweight, dude.
They say Akeem's one of the strongest bodybuilders out there too, right?
Yeah. Well, he's always he's known for training super crazy heavy. But he's had a couple of interviews now, and he's talking with Dave. since he switched to Oscar, because he was with Palumbo for the longest time.
Yeah.
It might have been 2 years ago where he switched to Oscar Arden, and Oscar has him doing more volume now.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing of too is when it comes to training, everyone has their own thing that they like to do, their own belief of it. But in all honesty, everyone's different. You got to find your own way of doing it. You can go back from high intensity. You know, you can look at Phil Heath, who uses high volume, and you can look at Ronnie, who basically did all of it. He did heavyweight and high volume.
Yep.
They're all three of the greatest Olympians of all time. It's just you have to find out what works best for you.
Yeah.
And that's it.
So I have done several different training styles. So to preface this, the only training style that is a constant, that is king above all else, is high intensity. You need to be high intensity with your training. Go into failure on some of your sets. That's the only constant across the board. But there's so many different training styles. Dog crap training, the FST 7, or just other like techniques, like the high volume, low volume, different ways to approach training. I've done them all, and every time I think I'm ingrained in one way, I'm like, I'll never train another way. I'll like do a workout with a buddy, and or he'll show me a couple things, and I'm like, oh, this works too. Like I was so stuck in my ways pre-COVID, right? And then I have my whole own home gym now. It's all commercial stuff, right? So I had my training friends come over and train with me the whole time for COVID. So for us, like, we didn't skip a beat. But I was training with my buddy Steve the whole time, and he trains a little different than I do in some aspects. And I didn't agree with it at all. And I started kind of like, we'd follow one of my workouts one day, we'd follow one of his, and I grew. I grew. And so there's no, and Dave Plum says it best too. He says everyone sends me their training workouts. Hey, what do you think about this workout program? He says, yes, do it. He said, because they all work, and it's true. If you put the effort in, you're going to reap the rewards.
Yeah, and just like you said, they all have the same goal. Whether you're training heavy and low weight, or low rep, lightweight, high rep, the goal is to reach failure at a high intensity.
Yeah.
Something that I've kind of took the approach of is I'll do, high rep, low weight for a long period. And then I'll do the exact same exercises, but just swip up the reps and weights.
Yep.
I start growing again, just keep switching back and forth.
Yeah.
It gets a little hard sometimes with like fun muscles like back or legs, but it's just something you got to do.
Yeah. So I was always a big squatter. I loved squatting. Big heavy weights. So, I was 500 pounds for reps. And that was all up until like the end of 2018, I think. And my knees were just not hanging anymore. They were just, my numbers and squats kept going up, and my knees just kept getting worse and worse, and my legs were not growing at all. And so I took a big step back, and I said, why is it not working anymore? And the first thing my first exercise in the gym was squats, because the mentality is you go into your compound movement first, because that's when you're the most fresh and the strongest, right?
Yep.
But what I realized was happening is I wasn't connecting with my quads anymore. I would do all my sets of squats, and I would not have a pump at all. So I was just getting pain in my knees, and I was getting a big ass, but I wasn't getting any kind of quad activation at all. And I was like, well, that's weird. So I started doing leg extensions, and I couldn't even really activate my quads and leg extensions. Obviously, if I'm doing the leg extension, my quads are working, but I wasn't getting like a ton of blood flow to them at all. So I changed my whole approach up, and I'd go to the gym. The first thing I would do is I would just smash leg extensions, high reps, 20, 25 reps. And then I would actually do a wall sit. And I'd get down to about 90 degrees, and I'd get up on the ball of my feet. And slowly but surely, I started getting these massive, insane pumps. And then at that point, I was still squatting, and I was getting a lot better connection to my quads during squatting. And unfortunately, my knees still were just getting way too sore and achy for way too long of a time. So I backed off the squats, and I started doing. Oh, lost your video. You still there?
Yeah, somebody was calling in on me.
Okay. And so now I do all super high volume leg press, lunges, hack squats, and I'll do squats once in a while, man. But something about the weight being loaded on my back. I think it's like an idea of a lever, right? Like the leg press, your torso is kind of above the weight, but on the squat, the weight is behind you and it's further away from that pivot point. And I think something to do with that, just for me, it's just like a shearing effect. Like they just can't stand up for it anymore. But
Yeah.
the point is, I used to do low volume, and for a long time, my quads grooved with that. And now I do all high volume. I'm talking like most of my leg days are always, everything's 20, 25, 30, sometimes 50 reps.
I remember you and me back at the old crunch days. We would do the hack squat, 3-4 plates on each side, 3 sets of 20.
Yeah.
Real low foot settings, and that makes you grow. It really does. You're getting failure.
You think about it, man. So yeah. So okay. So failure, right? Okay. So when you are going super heavy, you are activating a lot of motor units, right? Because you need as many motor units as possible to be able to move that weight and for your muscle to contract and force against that weight. When you do high volume, you might not be using as many motor units in the beginning of the set, but if you take it to that failure point, right? So that 20, 25 rep range where the muscles start breaking down, because 200 pounds might not be that much weight for 10 reps, but you start doing for 20 reps, 30 reps, it starts getting really heavy. And at that point, when your muscles start getting fatigued, more and more units start kicking in, start taking over that weight too.
Yep. Now, what would you say is your actual definition of failure on a set? Because I would say, me personally, it's when I feel I can no longer do them without something happening bad. Whether it's I know I'm not getting even a half rep, or I'm going to recruit some other type of major form of muscles to get this weight up. That's what I consider failure.
So my definition partly is stolen from John Meadows, Mountain Dog himself. I think true failure is true mechanical failure. Going until form starts, going up until form breaks, right? So as soon as form breaks, you've already failed, and now you're at risk for injury. So there's failure, which is right before your form breaks, and then there's beyond failure, where you are doing some kind of technique like having a partner, right? So if you're on the bench press, and let's say you get the last rep, you can barely get it up, then you control it down slow, and then your partner rips it up off your chest, and then you get a few more eccentric sets.
And that's where you and me agree. It's you have things like forced reps, partial reps, just working on the negative. But a lot of people do have that aspect, because I've ran into this where I tell people everything has to be failure. They're like, well, what if I don't have someone to help me in the gym? Failure doesn't mean that you doing that bench press and you're stuck. It's on your chest. Now you've reached failure. Failure's, for a fact, you cannot do one more without mechanically breaking down fully. Yeah. And it's all triceps at that point.
So failure, man, a lot of people, so I've got like two opinions on this. Part of me is cynical, and part of me is realistic, right? The realistic side of me says a lot of people don't know what failure truly, what their failure point truly is, and they don't know how far they can push themselves. And the cynical part of me says is a lot of people are just pussies.
Yeah.
They let the biggest thing, man, is people let their mind dictate what failure is, when the mind is extremely weak compared to what the body can do.
People have mind, well, I'm going to get 12 reps on this. Well, why'd you stop at 12? Do 14. Why can you do?
That's the biggest thing. That's exactly what I was going to say. Was people go into a set with a predetermined amount of reps in their mind. That's one of the biggest tips I give you, is don't approach your set with a predetermined amount of reps. Because once you set a number to it, you just set a limit in your head. And now when you get to that 12th rep, your mind's going to trick you into perceiving that that's true failure. And you'll actually break down, and it'll feel like failure. But if you went into it with like a clean slate, you could probably get 14, 15 reps.
Yep. Because when you think of, if you're telling yourself that you're going to do 12 reps on something, when you get to 8 and your arms are burning, whatever you're working, the first thing in your mind is 4 more.
Yeah, exactly.
And you'll hit that 4 more and you'll stop. But you easily could have left 2, 3, 4, 5 more in there. I had a client that sent me a photo or video of her doing a squat and 250 for 5 sets of 5. Yeah. And her set was the 5th rep, and she easily had 2 more in her. Now, the thing is, though, that was a brand new weight to her, so that's a big step. Mm-hmm. So that's fine. But at the same time, if that's just your training, you could do more.
Yeah.
But if that's something that's new to you, like that weight, that's 250 for a female, that's pretty impressive. Take that as your new weight, work on a new one next week.
So here's the thing too, and people get too stuck on the weight. they think that the only way to progress is the weight, and they don't realize that there's so many more techniques out there to make 250 pounds feel like 500 pounds. So what's the one thing you always say to me about weight?
The muscles don't know weight; they know tension.
They don't know the weight, man. I was training with Summer the other night, last 2 weeks ago, in the basement with shoulders. I thought I was gonna die shoulder pressing 40-pound dumbbells. I can shoulder press 110-pound dumbbells. I thought I was gonna die. I was on like rep 6 with 40s, and I was like shaking, like convulsing. I was like, "What the fuck, man?" But it's how well you control that weight, how well you can activate the muscles, the mind-muscle connection, the time under tension, all of it. All it plays a role.
100%. And tell you the dead honest truth, when I'm doing any workouts, any exercise, I never think about what weight I used the week before. I'm just, if I'm bench press, I'm just loading weight on, going by feel, like, yep, this feels good. I'm going to go up to 225, 275, 315, just keep doing what I'm doing until I feel like I can't go any higher for whatever my range is on that working set.
Yep.
It's because like we just said, it's all about the tension. I'm not going to say anybody, but any bodybuilder should be able to sit there and throw 315 off their chest up and down, no problem.
Right.
But can you do it slow and controlled and reach? You should be able to force yourself. If you can do 315 for, let's say 15 reps, if you can't force yourself to bench press 315 and fail at 5, you don't know how to train.
Yeah.
I think you talked about this a couple weeks ago. There was a real famous older, I want to say 80s, maybe early 90s bodybuilder. He was just known for current 20s. And he had some of the best biceps there was.
Yeah.
Who was?
Was it Vince Taylor?
Was it? It might have been Vince Taylor. But there was some that's all he would curl 20-pound dumbbells, and he had some of the best biceps.
Yeah.
That goes to tell you it's all about the tension. The time, the tut that Dennis James does, time under tension, working on negatives. That's what the muscle understands. It's pain and just snapping muscle fibers to regrow and be stronger.
Yep. And so to be clear, to be fair, that's not for everybody. And when I say that, I don't mean it literally, but I mean it's not for beginners, because when you're in the beginning stage, you don't have that mind muscle connection yet.
No, it takes
the only way to build that is to focus on it, right? So like when I have my clients come for training, I don't let anybody go up and weight crazy fast. It's all slow down, focus, think about it. One of the best things I do is I touch their muscles for them. So like rear delts. Rear delts are impossible to train. You don't know what the hell you're moving back there. Touch them, feel it, think about it. Close your eyes when you do the movement. It takes a long time to develop that mind-muscle connection, so you can take advantage of that.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Is that and what's scary too sometimes is, even as advanced bodybuilders, you can lose that mind-muscle connection, and it can take a long time to get it back. Whether it's because of frustration or just something's wrong. You have something's just not activating correctly in the body. Maybe just stress. There's a lot of things that. Yep, exactly, dude. There's a lot of things that take in that mind-muscle connection. I know Arnold was famous for saying that when he would do curls, he would close his eyes and just imagine that his biceps were mountains and they grew. That's that connection where you can just think of your muscle and you get that pump while you're working out.
Yep, that was I have it here somewhere. It's in the encyclopedia of bodybuilding.
Yeah, everybody should look at least twice.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. It's there. So there's, like we said, there's no right way of training. There's a right way, obviously, and there's definitely a wrong way as far as training with sloppy form. But there's no dominant training method over another. It's just, at the end of the day, it's the intensity you put into it, it's the work you put into it that's going to get you the results at the end of it.
Yep, and it's what fits your genetic structure and just how your body is. Like me personally, being 6'1.5", I'm not keen to putting 500-600 pounds on my back and going up and down constantly. That's not going to fit me. I can easily use a lighter weight, 315, somewhere in there, 365, do my reps, get my pump, move on to a new exercise or a different form of a squat. That's going to work perfectly fine for me versus someone that's a lot shorter. They can use that heavy weight because they don't have as much impact as someone that's tall. Yeah. So you have to factor body structure, what you do for a living. You do heavy construction. Hey, I don't know how you're going to do a leg day on a Wednesday.
Yeah, no, that's a good point too. No, you brought up a good point. And it's something you don't realize when you're young, right? When I started, it was, bench press, deadlift, squat. what's the other one I'm trying to think of here for triceps? Skull crushers, right?
Yep.
There's only a select few movements that you knew that you had to do because those were the compound movements and those are the money makers. You know what I don't do anymore? I don't bench press with the bar. I don't squat anymore. I don't deadlift, and I definitely don't do any skull crushers anymore.
And that I don't do military press or shoulder press.
No, yeah, hell no, no way.
It kills me. So it's like those are your compound movements, and that's your structure and what makes you build. But to a point, whether you start putting on more muscle or just your joints are shot and you can't do it anymore, and you got to find another way.
Yeah.
Like I think Orion said he didn't squat for the finals. Was it 6 or 7 years in his career? He just did nothing but like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Way.
So the point is, well, I think everyone needs to do it in the beginning. I think those 3 movements or those 4 movements, the key ones, do help build a solid base. But it's not, you don't need to do them. One of the biggest tips I can give people is do the movements that you feel. If you don't feel it, it's not working for you. I don't care if Jay Cutler does it or Ronnie Coleman does it or Phil Heath or Big Randy. If you don't feel it in the muscle, either you're not doing something right or it's just not, your leverage. Everyone has different leverages for different movements and you just might not be geared for it.
Yep.
You just got to find out what movements can you feel the most in that area. For me, skull crushers, man, I never, all I ever felt skull crushers was just pain. It just felt like pain and strain on my elbows and in the whole like area in that region. And it just, but I always did them because I thought I needed to do them to get big triceps. And all I would end up getting is I would just get elbow tendonitis.
Yeah. That I get a crazy forearm pump when I do skull crushers.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if it's because like I do skull crushers with a false grip, so I don't know maybe if I'm overcompensating with just gripping with my hands. But
Yeah.
I forearm grip or forearm pump.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you're like letting it come down at the bottom and then curl it back up at the top too.
Pay attention. I'm gonna try them again. I haven't done them in years, but I'll try them just to see what I'm doing with my wrist to see what that is.
Yeah. But yeah, man. So it's time's it now? 6:45. So we hit the 45-minute mark. I think so this is a pretty good first podcast, man. I think the biggest takeaway from this is it takes a long time to be able to add muscle or to be able to drop fat, add muscle, and become competition ready. There's no right or wrong way to train. The only constant is high intensity and mind muscle connection. What else? Any of the big takeaways?
Failure. You got to reach failure on anything you do. If you don't reach failure, you're just moving weights.
Yep. So now, or one last point, I guess, or one last question for you. Do you hit failure on every single movement, or do you hit failure more on the compound movements or bigger movements in the beginning of the workout, and then do more accessory pump work towards the end? What's your?
Depending on what I'm doing, like if I'm doing arms, I don't necessarily have just like one working set. I'll have 2 or 3 working sets for say those first 2 of my working sets. They're going to be real good. They're more than feeder sets, but they're pretty high intensity sets. But that last one, I will reach failure.
Yeah.
I at least tell everybody your last exercise or your rep on that exercise, or excuse me, set on that exercise should be failure.
Yeah.
No matter what it is. That's what I do believe.
Yeah.
Feeder sets or even your working sets that aren't your last set, you don't necessarily have to reach failure, but you better be damn near close.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, my typical approach is I stick more of my compound movements towards the beginning, obviously. After so my real approach to training is activation, then I do my compound movements, then I do like my pump work, and then sometimes I'll do a stretch movement at the end, if it's a leg day, I'll end with like a straight leg deadlift, or if it's a back day, I can end with like a pull down, something that stretches the muscle to allow more blood to volumize it again. But so I activate, and then my first compound movements, if it's like a chest day, my first compound movement, I'll take that last set to true failure, right? And that's my last set. Then my second one, I will do one set. I'll do my feeder sets again, and then I'll do one set to true failure, and then I'll do a back off set where I actually lower the weight, and I'll bring that to failure again. And then later on in the workout, I'll bring things very close to failure. Sometimes I'll go to failure. Most of the time, it's just coming very, very close, like maybe 1 rep left in the tank type thing.
And a lot of that too, it goes into more being instinctive when you're training.
Exactly.
you know, we've all had it where our first exercise we do, you feel like He-Man, you're ready to destroy the gym. You go into that second exercise and you just want to go home. You know,
So
so you got to be smart. You change that. Like I've told plenty of times, if your first exercise is say lat pull downs, if you're not feeling it activating, stop, go find another exercise.
yep. And
You know,
just for anybody watching right now, Sean and I decided to do this podcast because this is a normal conversation for us on any given night. We'll talk for
yeah,
about an hour, and the next thing I know, my wife's sitting on the couch mad at me, and I got to get off early. But no, we talked about this a couple nights ago. Shit, what were we just talking about? I just lost my train of thought.
why we started all this.
Nope, before that.
Oh, talking about like reaching intensity and reaching failure when you do it, and
Yeah.
like being in train.
Instinctive. I lost my whole train of thought, man. I don't know. Good way to end the podcast. So again, Secrets of Field Bodybuilding podcast. Thanks for stopping by, and tune in next week. Now I got to figure out how to stop recording this.